Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Theory 1 Lesson 1 class. We're going to start off looking over at our keyboard chart. And if you have not printed yours out, I encourage you to do so. So you can use that as a guide and you can prop that up somewhere where it's easily seen, and you can use that in Theory 1. So this is what the keyboard chart looks like. And this is actually expanded so that you can see the keys more easily, but obviously your machine is a lot smaller, takes up a lot smaller space. So I have that expanded so that you can see it easily. And I'm going to show you how our fingers and how our hand placement should be. All right, this is going to be part of lesson 1. So let's talk about our finger placement, okay? And I will refer to my keyboard chart with every lesson. So we'll have that up there for you, and you can also have yours at home. With that being said, I encourage you to not look down at your fingers when you're writing. You want to get used to looking up. It's all about the touch and the feel as opposed to having to watch your fingers. That will slow you down. Okay, so let's talk about our keyboard. We have over here, you see some letters here along with the asterisk key, and then you have letters on this side of the keyboard, and then down here is your vowel bank. Okay, so we've got our vowels down here, and as you can see, there are some letters that are missing on the keyboard. So that's what we're going to be learning in Theory 1, is how to combine certain letters to make a letter, because we are missing some. Okay, so if you notice, there's an asterisk key right in the middle of the keyboard. So everything from here over is considered the initial side. Everything from the left, everything from the asterisk and to the left of the asterisk is considered our initial side. Everything to the right of the asterisk is considered our final side. Okay, so when I say initial S, I'm talking about the S over on the initial side. When I say final S, I'm talking about the S over on the final side. Okay, so let's talk about our hand placements. Okay, so first, let's start with just the initial side. Now again, my keyboard chart is, expanded, so it's a little bit difficult for me to show you just because it is spread out. But what you want to do is you want to have your hands fall right above the crack here. Okay, so if you have your crack here, you're going to feel that crack. You want to just slightly place your hands. Your pinky goes on the S, your ring finger goes on the T, middle finger on the P, and your index finger on the H. Then your left thumb, you're going to place it between the A and the O, and it will naturally fall on that A and O. Okay, when you have your fingers here, and this is called home position. Okay, so let's look at the final side. I'm going to have my index finger on the F, my middle finger on the P, my ring finger on the L, and my pinky on the T. Not way up here, but just above the crack. Okay, and then my right thumb is naturally going to be falling on the EU. Okay, my fingers will not touch the DZ, and my fingers will not touch the asterisk key. So in home position, my hands should look somewhat like this. Of course, my pinky's going to be over here, my index will be here on the FR, and my left index will be on the HR, and my left pinky will be on the initial S. Okay, so that's what our hands should look like when we are in home position. Okay, so if you notice here, we've got our vowels. We've got A, O, E, U, and we'll talk about the I later on in the lesson. Okay, so that is how we designate the initial side from the final side. The vowel bank is just the vowel bank, but this is our initial side. This is our final side. Okay. Now, in text, when you're reading your handouts, you're going to notice that sometimes a letter may have a hyphen in front of it or after it. So basically what that means is if you have a hyphen after a letter, that means that it's going to be, if let's say you see an S with a hyphen, that just means that we're talking about initial S. Now, if you see a hyphen and then the S, that means we're talking about the final S. So anything with a hyphen and a letter, that just means it's going to be on the final side. If the letter's on the right side of the hyphen, okay? So think of maybe a hyphen is right here where the asterisk is. So if you have a hyphen S, you know it's final S, okay? And you'll only see that with the letters that are on both sides. So you're going to see that with the S, because we've got one here and here. You're going to see that with the T. You've got an initial T, a final T. You're going to see that with the P, initial P, final P. You're going to see that with the R, initial R, final R. The rest are only on one side, okay? Now, it's important to know that when we are writing on our machine, it's just as easy to strike two letters at the same time as it is to strike one letter. So that's why we combine letters to make different words or abbreviations, okay? So you're going to find that out, that it's not like a typewriter where we always have to strike one letter at a time to make a word. We can strike a series of letters to make one word, okay? So that's what we're going to be learning in Theory 1. Okay, now one other fact about our machine is these letters never move. If you strike the initial P, it's always going to fall in the same place on your screen, or if you have paper and you're reading your paper notes, or even if you're looking at your screen, it's always going to show up in the same location. Just like the final P is always going to show up in the same location. So if I were to strike all of the keys here at the same time, you're going to notice it goes in a pattern. So if I were to strike all of these keys at the same time, which I encourage you to do so you can see what it shows, you would see the initial S first, then the T, then the K, then the P, then the W, then the H, then the R. Then you would see your A, O, asterisk. Then you would see your F, R, E, U, P, B, L, G, T, S, D, Z. So the letter placements that you see will always remain the same. So let's say you strike a P and you're not really sure, oh, was that the initial P or the final P? You can kind of tell on your screen, or if you're reading your paper notes, if it's way over on the left side, you know it's initial P. If it's way over on the right side, it's going to be the final P, okay? So that is the way the machine shorthand looks when you strike those keys. And same with the DZ. If you were to strike that, it would come after the TS. So you kind of work your way from top to bottom, and you work your way over from left to right. And that's exactly how we read our notes, from left to right, okay? So all of the consonants on the left side print before all of the vowels, okay? And all of the consonants on the right side of the keyboard print after the vowels, okay? So you're going to see these letters will print before the vowels, and then you're going to see that these print after the vowels. So the vowels, and then the asterisk is going to come right down the center of the A, O, E, U, okay? All right, let's see here. We do read our steno from right to left. So for instance, if I want to write the letter rat, or I'm sorry, the word rat, I'm not going to use it as a typewriter and write R, lift up, A, lift up. We're going to strike R-A-T all at the same time. So if I have my hands in home position and I strike R-A-T all at the same time, if I lift up, I'm going to read R-A-T, okay? Now, if I were to make a mistake and maybe hit another letter, then that's why you would see another letter. If you saw maybe TS, maybe I struck the S, on accident. So that's why you're going to be reading your notes to see maybe what errors you're making or what keys you're hitting when you're not supposed to be, okay? All right. Now, looking at our first lesson, we're going to go ahead and go into our first lesson. Make sure, again, anytime you start writing on your machine, you want to have your hands in home position. Okay, you want to make sure your back is nice and straight. You're sitting nice and straight. Your posture is good. If you're slumped over, it's going to hurt your back and your shoulders. If you're tense, that's going to make your muscles tense up and cause you pain. I highly encourage that you just get a straight back chair. It doesn't have to be fancy. You can even use a card table chair if you want. Make sure it doesn't have side arms, because then you're going to see that your elbows will hit the side arms, and that will impair you to be able, to write on your machine. So you want to make sure there's no side arms on your chair. You don't want to sit on a bed or a couch or a lazy boy. You don't want to sit on anything that's going to give you that slouch. You want to make sure you're in a nice firm chair. You can put a cushion on the chair if you want to, but just make sure it's nice and firm so that you're sitting up, okay? And if you need to go back and listen to the recordings of how to, what the proper posture is for your machine, feel free to do that. And you can always adjust it if you find that maybe your arms are a little achy or it's not comfortable. You can always tweak it a little bit. Everybody's a little bit different, so it just depends on how tall you are, how long your arms are, and so forth. But just make sure you've got that 90-degree angle with your where your elbow is on your arm. Make sure it's about 90 degrees, and you want your feet flat on the floor. You want to sit up nice and straight. Have your machine right in the middle of your legs. You don't want it off to the side. That will give you back problems. And you want to make sure your feet are nice and flat on the floor. Okay, so let's look. We're going to start with our letters. It's very important that you get the keyboard down before you start actually writing words. So you need to get your keyboard down, which means you need to memorize your keyboard. And as I say that, I don't mean stare at the keyboard and memorize it like flashcards. You need to memorize it using your hands, and I encourage you to go through and just start practicing, strike each key with your fingers. And when you strike that, you're going to see that it's going to come up on your screen. Okay, so that's how you're going to get familiar with the keyboard. And you want to get to a point where you don't even have to look down at your fingers. You know by the touch where your fingers are supposed to go, and you know if you're off, like if your fingers are placed in the wrong place, you're going to know it by the feel. Okay, so that's the goal. And I have to say, with learning theory, all of these concepts are learned through muscle memory. So the only way you're going to get these concepts down is by practicing over and over again. It's muscle memory. Okay, so think of it as your brain. You need to drive grooves in your brain so that you've got that muscle memory, and you hear a word or you hear a brief and you know exactly how to write it. You're not hesitating. That's the goal for every lesson. You don't want to go on to the next lesson until you've mastered the one that you're working on, because the next one is going to build on the previous one. So you're doing yourself an injustice if you move into the next lesson and you have not mastered it. It's going to hurt your foundation, and in the long run, when you go into speed classes, it will slow you down. So just remember this: the better you know your theory, the more comfortable you feel with it, the more you have mastered it, the faster you're going to go when you get into speeds. So just remember that. You may think, oh, I'll learn it later. I'll just go ahead and get my work done so I can move on to the next lesson. It will come back to haunt you. So you need to master every lesson before you move on to the next. Okay? All right. So we are going to start with striking letters on the initial side. So when you print out your handouts, you're going to see 1-1. The keyboard practice on the initial side, meaning we're only going to strike our letters on the initial side. So that's using our left hand. That's another thing I want to point out to you. It's important that you never use another finger for another letter. So for instance, if I have my hands in home position, I will never take my middle finger and come over and strike the FR. Never. It's your fingers are placed in home position for a reason, and those fingers use the particular keys, and you never take another finger to use for another key. Okay, the only exception is our asterisk and our DZ. Okay, that's it. So if I have my hands in home position, I know that my pinky on my left hand is going to be used for the initial S. Then my ring finger, I'm only going to use the T and the K for my ring finger on my left hand. My PW, I'm going to only use my middle finger on my left hand. The HR, I'm only using my left hand index finger. The AO, I'm only using my left thumb, using the AO. Same with the EU, I'm only using my right thumb, okay? The FR, I'm only using my right index finger for the FR. The PB, I'm only using my middle finger of my right hand. The LG, I'm only using those keys with my ring finger on my right hand and my pinky on my right hand. I'm only using the TS. Now, when we do get into the DZ, we will be using our right pinky to use the DZ. Okay, it's more of like a moving motion. You come over here and strike either the D or the Z if you need it, but that's going to be, we're going to talk about that a little bit later, okay? Same with the asterisks. We do have the function of either using our left or right index finger for the asterisks. So that's the other exception. Okay, so we're going to get into that a little bit more in a little bit. So let's go ahead and do some practice on the initial side. Okay, so you're going to you're going to see that in class I'm going to be explaining things, and when I'm explaining it, you can go ahead and have all of your handouts printed so that it's right in front of you. You can take notes, and then if I'm talking about something, you want to have your machine handy so that you can practice whatever it is that I'm talking about, just to kind of see what it is that I'm explaining. Okay, so in 1-1 we're going to focus on the initial side. So you're going to notice that the first set of letters are S, T, P, H. So you're only going to strike one letter at a time with this drill because we're getting to know the keyboard, okay? So when you see S, you're going to strike the S, okay? When you see then you're going to see a T. Take the T, strike it, lift up. You're going to see the P, strike it, lift up. You're going to see the H. Strike that H and lift up, okay? Now you want to use like a firm, quick strike. You don't want to pound on your machine, okay? When I say that, I mean you don't have to pound on it. It really, the touch should be nice and soft, and not so much that you're just, doing a baby touch. You want to put a little bit of, muscle into it, but you don't want to pound, and you don't want to just softly touch it. You want to just put a little bit of, muscle into it, and you can practice it just to see what the touch feels like, and you can look at your screen and kind of compare to see what comes up and what doesn't. Okay, so then you're going to see the S, K, W, R, A, O. Okay, we're reading from the left over to the right. So again, you strike your S with your pinky, lift up. Strike your K with your ring finger, lift up. Strike your W with your middle finger, lift up. Strike your R with your index finger, lift up. Then you're going to strike your A with your left thumb, lift up. Strike your O with your left thumb, lift up. Okay? So you're going to you're going to see that in line 1. Then line 2, the same thing. It's going to have letters. Now, if you don't see a hyphen after a letter, that automatically means that it's on the initial side. Okay, so if you don't see a hyphen, that means it's automatically on the initial side. If you do see a hyphen, you know that they're talking about a letter on the final side. Okay, so again, you're going to go through and strike each letter according to what the lesson says, and strike one letter at a time. And it's really just focusing on this initial side and the vowels, okay? All right. Now, over on 1-2, we're going to practice some keyboard practice on the final side. So again, now this is only going to focus over here on the final side using our right hand. Okay, so again, you're going to place your hands in home position. Even if I'm focusing on this, this final side, that doesn't mean I want my right or my left hand to be down on my lap. I want to put it up so I'm ready to write, okay, no matter what comes my way. I don't ever want to put one hand down and keep one hand up. Okay, that's being lazy. You want to put your hands on home position at all times, okay? All right, so again, you want to learn the keys by touch, not by sight, okay? So so if you look at the handout 1-2, keyboard practice on the final side, you're going to notice it says F, then a hyphen P, L, hyphen T. The hyphen just means we're talking about the final side. So we're going to have our hands in home position, strike the F, lift up. Final P, strike the final P, lift up. Final L, strike the final L, lift up. Final T, strike the T, lift up. Now you are going to see that it does say DZ, okay? So again, you are, when it says D, if your hands are in home position, you just reach over and tap the D, lift up, bring it back to home position, okay? And then again, the EU. So you're only using your right thumb on your right hand for the E and the U, okay? So you're going to follow the handout for 1-2 and go through that and practice each letter, focusing just on the final side along with the EU, okay? All right, moving into handout 1-3, striking 2 keys at the same time. So this exercise is going to give you practice striking 2 letters at the same time. Okay, so make sure that you're striking the 2 letters together. Okay, so if you see SA, that doesn't mean strike S, lift up, strike A, lift up. No, that means SA together. You're going to use, your pinky and your left thumb, strike SA together. Okay, now I get this question a lot. How do I know if I'm striking this S or this S? Well, if it's SA, you know this S comes before the A. So you're going to use this S here on the initial side. If it's AS, then you know it's final S because the final S comes after the A. So AS would be here and here. Okay, so that's how you know. If I say TA, I know I'm going to use my initial T because it comes before the A. If I have AT, I know I'm going to strike the A and the final T because this T comes after the A, okay? All right, so you're going to go through and you're going to strike each 2 letters at the same time. So if you notice, it'll have SA, SO, SE, SU. Okay, so you put your fingers on home keys. You're going to strike SA, lift up, okay? SO, you're going to strike SO at the same time, lift up. SE, now SE is going to require you to use your left pinky and your right thumb. SE, lift up. SU, strike it together, lift up. Okay, then it says TA, TOTETU. So again, TA, lift up. TO, together, lift up. TE, now make sure when it goes to TE, you're using your right thumb, not your left. TE, lift up. TU, lift up. Okay, and then the second line, PA, PO, PE, PU, and HA, HO, HE, HU. What this does is it gets you used to striking your consonants along with a vowel. Okay, so that's what exercise 1-3 does. Okay, All right, so make sure you strike those simultaneously or at the same time using a quick, light tap. All right, moving on to section 4. Handout 4, 1-4, I should say. We're going to learn our first code, okay? Now, in court reporting, you're going to learn that we have certain words and phrases that are abbreviated. We call those briefs, okay? So we're going to learn our first brief. If you notice, we don't have an I down here on our vowel bank, okay? The way we write our I is using the EU. So EU is how we write I, the pronoun I. I will be there later, okay? That's written EU. And that is always used with your right thumb right over the EU. And go ahead and practice that a few times. Strike that a few times. And you can see it coming up on your screen to make sure that you're striking E and the U. Okay, it should come up as EU, not just the U or not just the E. If you're seeing that, that just means you're only striking one of these keys, okay? So right in the crack there between the two, you're striking both of those at the same time. Okay. All right. So basically our I is going to be our first brief that we practice and we come across. And there's going to be several words that we're going to combine with other letters to make a word, which we call briefs. Okay. So after you feel comfortable striking the EU, you're going to go into section 1-4, and that's going to give you practice with your I using the consonants. Okay, so you notice on line 1, it'll say S-I, T-I, P-I, H-I. So you're going to strike S-I, lift up, T-I, lift up, P-I, lift up, H-I, lift up, and so forth. Okay, so remember, if the consonant comes before the vowel, then it's on the initial side. If the consonant comes after the vowel, you know it's on the final side. Okay? All right. Moving into section 1-5, we have the asterisk key. So that's located right in the center of our keyboard. Now the asterisk is one of those keys that we have the ability to either use our left index finger or our right index finger. As a rule, I use whatever finger is closest to the asterisk. So for instance, if I have the word pal, P-A-L, I'm probably going to use my index finger on my left hand because I feel like it's closer and it's easier to strike that, okay? If I have the word, let's see, tap, I'm probably going to use my right hand because it's easier. Okay, so it doesn't matter. You can use either finger. You can just stick with one finger if you like that better, but you have the option there, okay? So there's a few ways that we're going to use the asterisk key. So right now we're just going to focus on the first use for the asterisk key, okay? We've got different ways that we use it. So in section 1-5, the asterisk key is used by itself in these set of directions to note that an error has been made, okay? So anytime an error has been made, even when practicing, we will strike the asterisk key by itself and rewrite the word. This is how we know that we wrote the word incorrectly, okay? So you may use either index finger. In that case, you can use either one that you're comfortable with. So let me show you an example of using the asterisk key when we make a mistake. Obviously, if I write the word rat, but really I wanted to write the word cat. If I write rat and I lift up and I tell myself, oh, I made a mistake, I'm going to strike this asterisk key, lift up, and then rewrite it as cat. Now, if I see that asterisk key, I'm going to know I made a mistake, so it's not supposed to be rat, it's supposed to be cat. So that is the number one reason why we use our asterisk key. It tells us that we made a mistake. And if you notice on your keyboard, if you strike rat, and then you have an asterisk key after that, and then you strike cat, your software will actually take it away for you. So it's very nice. It comes in handy. All right. And it also lets you know when you go to you go to transcribe a test, if you've got the asterisk key, you know you've made a mistake and you corrected it. So it's very important, an important function to have. So in section 1.5, it's going to have different letters and then the asterisk key. So you're just going to strike, if you see STPH with the asterisk in between, you're going to strike your S, initial S, lift up, strike your asterisk, okay? T, so initial T, lift up, strike your asterisk, okay? P, lift up, strike your asterisk. It's just getting you familiar with striking that asterisk after you strike a letter, okay? Again, if you see the hyphen T, you know it's on the final side, okay? Moving on to section 1.6. Now, the stenographer is responsible for punctuation. So we're going to learn our first set of punctuation. So obviously we don't have a period on our keyboard. We don't have a comma. We don't have a question mark. So there's ways that we can we're going to take letters and make those punctuation marks, okay? So the first one we're going to learn today is the period. So the period, if I have my hands in home position, the way we write our period is by striking the final FPLT. That's how we strike our period, final FPLT. So when you see final FPLT, you're going to know that's a period. So if I write the word, the rat sat, and then I have FPLT, I know that's a sentence. The rat sat FPLT, which means period, okay? Now, make sure you strike the FPLT simultaneously or at the same time. Now, the comma, we're going to also learn the comma. That is going to be using the final RBGS. Using that final RBGS is how we write a comma. RBGS. All at the same time, simultaneously. So practice that. Make sure that all these letters are coming up when you strike the period, and make sure all of these letters are coming up when you strike the comma. Now, I want to let you know that our pinkies tend to be our weak fingers. Our thumbs, index, middle finger, ring finger, those are usually strong. Our pinkies are the weak ones, so we have to build them up. Okay, and as a court reporting student, you're going to build up the muscle. Okay, so I promise you right now, it might seem like hard. You may strike the FPLT and go, wow, my T isn't showing up. That just means you need to put a little bit more muscle in it, and you will learn how to do that, okay? Over time, your pinkies are going to get strong, okay? But keep that in mind so you don't strike the RBG, give it a nice firm push, but then you don't push down on the S. That's very common. Same with our left hand over here with our S, okay? And usually it's the initial S, the final TS, and the final DZ is where we see the problem. So keep that in mind. Okay, so we've got our period, final FPLT, and we have our comma, final RBGS. So we've learned two of our punctuation codes. All right. Now moving into section 1.7, we have our very first briefs. Now you're going to notice that in every lesson that we come across, we're going to learn new briefs in every lesson. And that's going to be something that you're going to learn all the way through theory. So it's important that you get those down. You want to be able to hear the brief and strike it as soon as you hear it. You don't want to hesitate. Excuse me. So briefs are usually very common words that are frequently used in the English language, and it's crucial that you learned your briefs and phrases, okay? Otherwise, when you get into speech, you're going to be held back. So, and remember that each lesson is built from the previous one. So you need to master the one that you're currently in before you move on to the next one. Okay, so today in lesson 1, we're going to learn the following briefs: he, it, you, the. Okay, those are the 4 that we're learning. So we already learned that I, the letter EU, is going to make the pronoun I. Okay, we're going to talk about the noun I on our face at another time. But today we learned the pronoun I is EU. So now we're going to learn the briefs. He. So if I have my hands in home position, he is going to just be the E. Okay? And some of you may ask, well, why don't we just strike HE? Well, we're going to learn about that later on in another lesson. That means something else. So he is strictly E. Okay? It is going to be initial T. Initial T is it. Okay? You is going to be just the U. U. So if my hands are in home position, this is my U. Okay? The is going to, the brief for the is final T. All right? Final T. Now, if you notice, it and the are very similar. It is initial T. The is final T. So it's very important that you get those down, because it would be hard to know if you made a mistake if you read a sentence and you've got it instead of the, or the instead of it. Okay, so you need to get that down. Okay, so practice those. And again, remember a hyphen after the letter just means if you see hyphen T, you know we're talking about the. If you just see the T, you know we're talking about it. Okay? All right. So really practice those. And then if you notice in section 1.7, it has a brief practice section where you're going to write you, it, he, the, and so on. Now, I am going to tell you that you need to strike the comma in after each brief. So if I have you, I'm going to strike you, lift up. Then I'm going to strike my comma, lift up. It, strike my initial T, lift up, strike my comma, lift up. He, strike the E, lift up, strike my comma, lift up, because it's going to make it easier to read. Otherwise, if you just look at this and you just see a bunch of, briefs without separating it with the comma, it makes it harder to read. So I just encourage you to do that for this section, okay? Now, moving into section 1.8, okay? Word writing practice, all right? So we're going to learn some words today, okay? And there's a few rules that you need to know when writing on your machine, okay? So keep this in mind. And you want to write this down on your homework or in a notebook, okay? Double letters are ignored. For example, if I have the word tell, T-E-L-L, I'm going to write that as T-E-L, okay? So even though it's spelled in English T-E-L-L, we only write it on our machine as T-E-L. Okay, so we ignore the double L. Number 2, consonants are written according to sound or phonetically. So if you notice, car, we don't have a C here. We will learn the C eventually, but words that have the k sound, we're using the K. So car is going to be written as K-A-R. Okay, that's how we write car, or cat, K-A-T. Okay. And number 3, single vowels are written as they are spelled. For example, to is written, like I want to go to the store is written T-O. Okay, so, S-O. Okay, that's how we write those. So single vowels are written as they are spelled. Okay. All right, so in section 1.8, we're going to practice some of these words. And again, you want to separate each word with a comma just so it's easier to read. Now, eventually, when we get into our full-on sentences, we won't separate every word with a comma. This is just why we're practicing the words, okay? So we've got at, rat, sat. So I have my hands on home position. I'm going to strike AT, at, lift up, strike my comma. Okay, sat, S-A-T, lift up, strike my comma. Rat, R-A-T, lift up, strike my comma. And so on. The next line is cat, hat. So cat, K-A-T. Notice my fingers are in the right position. Lift up, strike my comma. Hat, H-A-T. Lift up, strike my comma. Now, you're going to notice that right now you're limited on what words you can use. So it's going to sound a lot like the cat in the hat. So just think of yourself as maybe a kindergartner and you're learning the alphabet. So, all right, so you're going to go through all of those words in section 1-8. So you've got sap, tap, cap, rap, pap, cup, pup, sup. Again, make sure you're focusing on the right vowel. If it's pup, you want to use P-U-P. And if you hit pap instead of pup, for example, you would strike your asterisk and rewrite it. So you want to go at a slow pace. Theory is not about speed. It's about consistency and accuracy. You will build your pace when you get out of theory and you have mastered the concept. So don't ever worry about speed in theory. It's not about speed. It's about accuracy. Okay, so then 1-8 goes through several different words. Kit, pit, hit. Don't forget your I is the EU. So, sought, sell, sop, coal, cuff, tiff, and so on. Okay, moving into section 1-9, practice writing drill. Now, in 1-9, you're going to see phrases, like 2 words. So you're going to see the set, the pet, the kit. I want you to strike the comma after the second word. So if I have the set, comma, you're going to notice in your handout it has a comma after the set, comma, the pet, comma. I don't want you to strike the comma after the, okay? So if your hands are in home position and you've got the pet, you're going to strike the, lift up, pet, P-E-T, strike pet, strike your comma. Okay, again, it's easier to read when you go back to read it. Okay, the kit, comma, the hit, comma. What I don't want you to do is write the and then comma, kit, comma. I want each set to be together before you strike the comma. Okay, the cut, comma, the rut, comma, the hut, comma, and so on. Okay. Moving into section 1-10. We've got some practice sentences. Now, these are sentences. These have a noun and a verb. So because they're full sentences, we want to use the period after our sentence. That tells us the sentence has ended. We're starting a new sentence. So if you notice in the first sentence, you're going to see he cut up. So my hands are on home position. I strike he, lift up, cut, K-U-T, lift up, U-P, lift up, strike my period, okay? And you're going to go through all of those sentences in section 1-10. There's several sentences. And again, focus on your accuracy, not your speed, okay? You will gain speed over time. Okay, right now it's all about the muscle memory. Okay. Now, when you are doing your homework, I want you to do each lesson or each section, go through each section one time, completely go through it one time. So that means I want you to go through 1-1 and then go to 1-2 and so on, okay? I want you to do that at least 3 times, preferably 4. Okay, at least 3 times, preferably 4. But what I don't want you to do is go through 1-1 and then do it 3 times and then go to 1-2. No, I want you to go through everything once from start to finish. So meaning you go through 1-1, 1-2, 1-3, 1-4, and in lesson 1, you're going to have, you're going to go through 1 through 10. There's 10 sections. So do that, go through from the start to finish 1 time. Then you're going to do it again a second time. Then you're going to do it again a third time. And I prefer that you do it 4 times, but I will leave that up to you. You need to at least do it 3 times, and depending on how you feel. And then you're going to go back and you're going to read the last set that you've written. You're going to go back and you're going to read those notes, and you're going to compare it to your handouts. And I want you to take a pen and make your corrections. Anything that you've missed, cross out. Like if I wanted to write the word rat, but let's say I realized, oh, I wrote the word cat. What you would do is cross out the R and right above it, write a K to show that you made a mistake. And now I have to say, if let's say I write rat and I realize I made a mistake, so then I hit my asterisk and then rewrite it as cat, well, that is not a mistake because you caught it before you went on to the next word. So I get that question a lot. If you've used your asterisk correctly and you rewrite it the correct way, and you can use, let's say I write rat and I make a mistake, so I hit my asterisk. Then let's say I want to hit cat, but I accidentally hit whacked. Okay, I'm going to hit my asterisk again. Then I hit cat. Even if I hit my asterisk twice because I made a mistake 2 times, it's okay. I corrected it, so that's not considered a mistake. Okay, we only take a pen and mark down or show our mistake if we didn't use our asterisk key. Okay, so you're going to do that with your last set. You're going to go through and read that last set and make any corrections that you have made. And there's 2 reasons why it's so important that you go through and read your notes. Number 1, it teaches you how to read the steno. It's very easy to learn how to write steno, but not know how to read it. It's kind of like learning a foreign language. Sometimes people can read it, but then they can't say it. So it's just like that. You need to be able to write it and read it. Okay, so go through and read the steno notes. Okay. Another important reason to read through your notes is because it also shows you what mistakes you're making. Let's say each time I notice that instead of rat, I'm writing R-A-L. I'm going to know I'm missing that T there and I'm accidentally hitting the L. So that is why it's so important that you go back and read your notes and make those corrections. Okay, and you can use a pen when you make your corrections. All right. So you want to do it at least 3 times, preferably 4. Okay, and if you have any questions, you can send me an email, and which is located on our page, and I will answer any questions that you may have. And then this will conclude our lesson 1 for the Theory 1 class. And there will be read back sentences for you in another section. So after you feel comfortable and you complete your homework, then you're going to listen to the read back sentences, write those, and then go back and read them. Read your notes along with what I've dictated to see how you've done, to give yourself an evaluation. Okay, so that concludes our Theory 1, Lesson 1. Have a great day.